Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I stroll home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a lovely day here in suburban Chicago, and I am walking home. I say lovely. It's snowing a little bit, and it's dang cold, but for all of that, it's lovely. Well, as I've mentioned before, I am on the final arc of season 4 of the podcast, and so I'm beginning to reveal my new top 50 games of all time. If this is news to you, you should listen to episode 392, in which I explain how I came to have these top 50 games and why. So the plan is, over the next several episodes, I will climb up my list, revealing games one at a time, and building the drama tension. Like I said, if you didn't in the last episode, if you don't want the drama or the tension, you can always go over to rattleboxgames.com and look at the show page, the show notes for this episode, and you'll find a link to my Board Game Geek list, which is called my top 50. I know, very creative, and that is the current top 50. So you will see the list that I'm slowly revealing by episodes, or you can just listen now. Here we go. Oh, also, because many of these games have been on my list before, and I've talked about them before a lot on the show, instead of just explaining what the game is, I'm going to give a very brief reminder of what it is, and then I'm going to talk about something I really like about it. I'm inclined to say my favorite thing about it, but I can't guarantee that I'll remember my favorite thing, because again, off the cuff, I'm surprised they did enough prep to print the list ahead of time. So, all right, here we go. Coming in at number 50, the lowest game on my top 50, although that represents a significant achievement, is Clank, a deck-building adventure. Now, I've played Clank quite a bit with my family. We have the regular deck, we have the regular game, and we have one expansion map that has 2 different sides. It's like an underwater thing and another underwater thing. We like it quite a bit. There is another expansion map with like a mummy I've been thinking about getting, but I haven't gotten to it yet. It's a deck building game where you're diving into a dungeon trying to steal the treasure from a dragon. So, what is my favorite thing about it? I love the Clank mechanism. That's probably not all that original to say you love the Clank mechanism in a game called Clank, but it's so clever, this idea that when you're sneaking through a dungeon, you're trying to be as quiet as you can, and every now and again you'll make noise, and that puts a cube into the bag. And every now and again, the dragon will listen for noises, and you pull cubes out of the bag. And if the dragon hears you, represented by one of your cubes getting pulled out of the bag, then you get hurt. It's a really clever system. It works very well from a mechanical standpoint because you put cubes in the bag. If your cube is one of the ones that pulled out, you got hit. For every cube that gets pulled out, you got hit, and it goes on your hit track. It works really smoothly. It's hard to screw up. It's really fun because you always have that gambling element where there are, I think, 20 neutral cubes in the bag that count as no one getting hit. So you can always say like, I'm sure we'll pull neutral cubes. Yeah, go ahead and throw another handful of my cubes in there. It makes for a really entertaining experience because you can kind of push your luck in how much Clank you think you'll get. And I love doing that. And it's always funny if I'm not the first one out and the dragon starts really marching fast, which is what happens once someone has made it out. Then the dragon realizes people are burgling and the dragon starts rampaging a lot. Boy, it's funny. So that's Clank, a deck building adventure. I don't know who designed Clank. I'm kind of ashamed of that. It's from Renegade Games, though. And that's my number 50. Coming in number 49 is a classic, an oldie but a goodie. Also, first time on my list. That was Clank's first time on my list. Is Seven Wonders. Now, I definitely had played Seven Wonders before I made my 2019 list. And I think I'd played Seven Wonders before I made my 2017 list. So why is it on my list now and it wasn't before? I think it's because I've played it more and I've come to appreciate the mechanical depth that happens in the game, the accessibility that it provides because it is relatively accessible to new players. It's complicated. It's not Ticket to Ride light. It's not Happy Salmon light. It's definitely light to medium weight, but there's a lot going on and it's really fun. There's also enough variance with the deck that you can kind of blame bad card draw when you lose. Not that I ever do that. But what's my favorite thing about it? My favorite thing is the science cards. Now, I often don't take the science cards, in part because early on in my days of Seven Wonders, I was always the science card guy. So people just started watching it. So they take one science card, then everybody takes one. And you might as well not even try. So I kind of moved away from that. But every now and again, I like to aim at the science cards and, take a run up the science pile. Because if you can get a bunch of science cards, you can get so many points. It's a real delight. And I like everything about Seven Wonders. I think it's great. I've played the new edition, and I think the fronts of the cards are nice. I don't really like the backs of the cards, the shiny ones. I like the old backs better. I don't have the new edition myself. We play on the old edition at my house, but we have the new edition at school as part of my board game class materials. So that is Seven Wonders, my number 49 from Antoine Bauza and Repost Productions. Number 48, also new to my list for the first time, this is Welcome To. Now, if you've listened to the podcast, you expected to see Welcome To somewhere on this list. Welcome To is a flip and write game in which you are designing a suburban neighborhood and you are filling out that neighborhood with house numbers. You're filling in parks, you're filling in pools, you're trying to meet a variety of different scoring obligations, and it's a little bit of a race. You're trying to do it faster than other people. My favorite part about Welcome To is the tension. I guess it's another push your luck element anyway. The tension that comes in leaving a space in the map for a specific thing. It's especially juicy when you are aiming for all the parks or all the pools on a particular street and you get down to the point where you just have one number, especially if it's a harder to get number like a 4 or a 10. If you have like a 4 or a 10 and you also need it to be a pool or a park, when you hit that jackpot, oh man, it feels so good. It's just really neat to suddenly be like, oh yeah, I got exactly what I needed. And that's part of why I like Welcome To. Designer of that is Benoit Turpin, I think. Benoit Turpin. And I believe it's Deepwater Games, although they've partnered with a number of, I know Blue Cocker was the publisher for a bit. I'm not sure who else. But that's Welcome To, my number 48. Number 47 on my list, also for the first time on this list. In fact, I'm just going to say it now. All of the games I'm covering on this episode are going to be brand new to the list. Is Calico. Calico is a game from, oh boy, I want to say Kevin Russ. I'm not 100% about that. And it's published by AEG. It is a tile-laying game where you are making quilts. And it's the delicious tension. This is the thing I like about Calico. There is a delicious tension that emerges as the game goes on. Because at the beginning of the game, you're wide open in what you take and where you can place things. You're allowed to place tiles wherever you want. There are scoring conditions in the middle of the game that challenge you to go in a certain way. But at the beginning of the game, you are wide open in how you engage with those scoring conditions and what you choose to do with them. So there's joy and freedom in that early section. But as soon as you start putting tiles in, you start reducing your options. If you want to score a lot, you put a color here, you've now blocked off this other tile. You can't connect to those colors. You have a pattern here. As soon as you've committed one or two elements to that pattern, you can't commit the others. So it's just, there's a ratcheting up of tension that works beautifully as you progress into the game. And the result at the end of the game is super tense. Like you are really hoping for excellent tile draw. And one of my favorite gaming moments of the last couple of years happened when we were playing Calico. I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but I'm telling it again. We had a family member who was setting up a very specific set of things they were going for. And my wife reached for a tile that was the exact tile they needed. And they said, "I will murder you if you take that," which we all busted up laughing. It was very funny. And it just highlighted the delicious, beautiful tension that's at the heart of the pretty and fun cat-themed game, Calico, from Kevin Russ and AEG. My number 47 on my top 50. Next up, we have number 46. This, like Seven Wonders, is a classic that has worked its way into my heart and onto my list. This is Five Tribes. At number 46, a game that I did not have on my list, but I definitely had played in 2019 and in 2017. So what is it about? What is the change? Well, one, I don't own this game. And so my wider net this year that allowed for games I don't play regularly to work their way into the filter gave this game its leg up. Basically, each time I was doing the comparison, I would go like, is this game better than Five Tribes? Well, no, Five Tribes is pretty good. And it would inch its way up in the list. So eventually I found that it was at my number 46 slot. And honestly, I agree with it. Five Tribes is really neat. Mancala style game. You have this huge grid covered in little meeples, and on your turn you're going to pick up one square full of meeples and you're going to march them across the board Mancala style, dropping one in each square you pass until you get to an end square. And the rule for that end square is that you have to be able to place in that end square a meeple of the same color that's already there. So there's a lot of thinking, and this is a very tactical game. When you're playing Five Tribes, you can't plan ahead more than a couple moves. And even then, you probably can't, because the person before you is going to take the square you want. So sometimes you can have a first choice, second choice, third choice situation. But even then, it could change, because maybe they don't take the square you want to take, but they land in the square you want to go to. Or they drop an extra meeple in the square you want to go to. So now you have to go an extra space when you do take that square. So there's a lot going on that makes it hard to easily plan ahead, which means it's more tactics than strategy. And that's Five Tribes, my number 46 in my top 50. The designer of that one, who is it? I want to say it's Bruno Cathala. Don't quote me on that. I guess I've just recorded myself saying it. I'm going to put it on the internet, so I don't know. I don't have my phone handy, and it's too cold to take off my gloves. So I'm going to go with Bruno Cathala, and we'll see if I'm right. It also could be Antoine Bauza. It feels like he's made too many games for it to also be Five Tribes. So I'm saying Bruno Cathala. All right, on to my number 45. My number 45 is the Stefanfeld classic, The Castles of Burgundy. So far on my top 50 list, boy, a major theme seems to be older games that I've finally gotten around to understanding why they're so beloved. Now, The Castles of Burgundy is a game I have never played in person. What? You're putting it on your list and you've never played it in person, Brendan? That's right, Brendan. Shut up. The Castles of Burgundy is a game I play regularly in asynchronous online play. And over time, like its meteor brother Trajan, I have come to appreciate the depth and breadth of the strategy that's at play in the Castles of Burgundy. In this game, you are drafting tiles from a central, or you roll a couple dice, and then you can spend those dice in a variety of different ways. Among the most significant is you use the dice to buy tiles from market, or to place the tiles from your reserve onto your personal board. There's an element of mitigating the dice, but you can't do that too often. There's an element of buying these tiles that give you bonuses, but not really points. So maybe you get a tile that lets you mitigate dice more easily, but it doesn't score you any points. There's an element of finishing spaces quickly, gets you more points than finishing them slowly. And there's an element of gathering and selling goods. All of these are things I really enjoy. My favorite element, as with many Stefanfeld games, is when I manage to play a piece that lets me have a kind of cascade of bonuses. So when I get a roll in Burgundy that lets me play a castle piece, which lets you take an extra turn, and then I use that extra turn to play a piece that lets me pull an extra piece from the market, and now I'm 2 pieces up, and I haven't even used my second die yet. That sort of thing, that sort of cascade is really fun, and part of why Castles of Burgundy is my number 45 on my top 50 list. Speaking of cascades of bonuses, what's a game that has more cascades of bonuses and I like better than Castles of Burgundy? My number 44, Trismegistus, the Ultimate Formula. Now, Trismegistus is the least well-known of the T series from, I think it's Board and Dice are the publishers. They publish such games as Teotihuacan and Tekenyu, and now Trismegistus. This one feels not like the others. It's not about an ancient civilization. It's not about building a city. It's about being an alchemist and converting things from one form to another. You have all these tiny little dice that you're spreading all over the board that mean alchemical symbols, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. Ultimately, the game is really thinky, really strong overlap of ideas and bonuses, and it's a game that challenges you to think about how you can make one turn cause several things to happen and how you can get those to overlap in delicious and delightful ways. My favorite thing about Trismegistus is that it has this grid. I don't remember what they call it. It's a grid of tiles that you use to score points. And as you score those points, you gain additional benefits. I really like making that grid of tiles work well. And I really like the kind of effect of having those tiles overlap and trigger off of each other. It's a real delightful mix of effects, and it rewards careful planning and careful thinking, but it also lets you then accelerate your next turn. And because of that, Trismegistus, the ultimate formula, is my number 44 on my top 50 games of all time. So thus begins the first of several episodes about my top 50. Number 44 through 50 have now been covered. Now you know, and knowing's half the battle. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. If you want to participate in the conversation about this, you can head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269, where we have forums to talk about the episodes. If you want to send me a message, you can email me, brendan@rattleboxgames.com, or send me a direct message on Board Game Geek messaging to the username Wombat929. That's me. Thanks for joining me in my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye. Oh, hello, dog.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.